Yeah, Ernie must have talked to the people at my house to say, what kind of mood is she in? Better tell her, you turn your phones off. Anyway, I'll try to be sweet today, y'all. I really will. I got to drive 5.5 hours after I leave from here, so y'all pray for me. Hopefully that'll be some good windshield time so I can get my head straight, right? For the next thing I got to do tomorrow. Okay, a couple of announcements. Ray Myers, where's my friend Ray? Ray Myers, right back there. Leader of the Kaufman County Tea Party. And Ray, y'all give him a big hand of applause. Ray and I do a whole lot of work together, and it's a good thing we don't live in the same county because there's no telling what would happen. Ray and I are always conspiring to get rid of some rhinos and get some good legislation and policy in place and just hold them accountable, don't we, Ray? All right, so the Kaufman County Tea Party has been very supportive of the events that we've had, and so I'm asking you all to consider supporting the Kaufman County Tea Party on September 20th. They will have their annual fundraiser, and they're going to have Sheriff Joe Arpaio as their keynote speaker. So if you want to get more information on how to attend that fundraiser, you need to see Ray. So Ray, raise your hand one more time. So y'all please do that. I intend to go to support the Kaufman County Tea Party and hear what Sheriff Joe has to say. Now I want to recognize somebody that's here today that is running for the Justice of the Peace against a longtime incumbent, and that's Ms. Flora Nichols. Flora, please. I've met with Flora. She is an outstanding candidate. And so you'll be hearing more from Flora as we get closer to the November elections. Also, we have a friend from Gregg County here today, Ms. Rhonda Anderson. If there's anybody here from Gregg County, owned property or a resident of Gregg County today? Do we have any? Rhonda, I think you're the only person here today. We usually have people from Gregg County. But anyway, she has a problem with her commissioner's court. Imagine that. She had a petition, a resolution that she wanted put on the agenda so that they would take a strong stand against the federal government commandeering local taxpayer assets to fund unlawfulness, and they refused to put it on the agenda. Shame on them. Good luck to you, Rhonda. Keep up the fight. Now, this week, I will want to tell you a couple things. I had a meeting with Senator Nichols, Robert Nichols. He's chairman of the Transportation Commission. He's a former chairman of the Transportation Commission. He is chairman of the Senate Transportation Commission in Austin. And his chief of staff called me a couple of weeks ago, and the senator wanted to come visit with me about transportation. So you all know that there's a proposition on the November ballot, where they're asking you to take money from the rainy day fund. Well, money that is headed toward the rainy day fund, they want you to divert that to go into transportation. So I listened to what the senator had to say, and the bottom line of the conversation was this: if I trusted the people who were in charge of the Transportation Commission and in charge of TxDOT, I might have a more warm and fuzzy feeling toward Prop 1. But when TxDOT is spending money on research on hovercraft, jetpacks, and driverless cars, all manner of boondoggles, streetcars, trolleys, all sorts of things like that, instead of focusing it on where we need to spend transportation dollars. The fact that TxDOT says it started out at $4 billion, then it was $5 billion, and now it's up to another $6 billion. I'm sorry, I'm old school about it. You need to show me that you're doing the right thing with what I already gave you before I give you some more. And I just told the senator, I urged him because he has been on the Transportation Commission before, and he knows where the reforms need to be in TxDOT, and he admitted that. So I urged him to join with his more conservative Republican colleagues that will be in the state Senate this time. We won another race this week out in West Texas. Charles Perry won his race with like 54% of the vote, so we have another constitutional conservative in there. I'm not going to tell you that everything's going to be okay now, because you all know that you have to, once you get them in office, it takes a whole lot of work to keep them on the straight and narrow. So we're going to work on doing that, because some of the old lions of the Senate are already working on the new ones. Try to get their minds right before January. So I'm just saying, we've still got plenty of work to do. But we'll be talking more about the transportation issues. But I would urge you to read what we sent out yesterday on TxDOT. If you did not read that email alert that's got links to, and there are embedded links in those articles that take you to documents that will prove the points being made there. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. Bob, you want to get my presentation up, please, sir? Okay, we have, I think over the past couple of months, done as thorough a job as possible, short of me locking you in a room for about 3 days and just telling you everything that you need to know all at one time about the open border. We've tried to bring in, people from law enforcement, people from, Breitbart, Texas, people who've been on the border. I've been on the border. I've seen it firsthand. And once you've been there and you've actually seen it, you cannot get it out of your mind. Because what it proves to you with your own eyes is that we've been betrayed. And I call it the great betrayal. And, we have a lot of smoke and mirrors that go on with politicians. And unfortunately, a lot of our politicians use law enforcement as political props. And I resent that, and so do they, because they're in dangerous situations, and they're used as political props, instead of people just listening to them. I will tell you that Sean Moran, and we've invited Sean, he is the Vice President of the United States Border Patrol Association. We've asked him to accept an award on behalf for Grassroots America, from Grassroots America, to the rank and file of the U.S. Border Patrol as Champions of Freedom at our November 1st event. Because Sean Moran, if it were not for Sean Moran and Chris Cabrera and Hector Garza and those Border Patrol agents who are willing to speak out, the American people would not know the truth. And so a lot of what is in this border plan that we're about to go over is in response to the truth that we have heard from U.S. Border Patrol. And if you wanted to encapsulate and define what they want in just a few words, it would be, please let us do our jobs. Please let us enforce the law. Because you know that they take an oath to uphold the law. They take an oath to the United States Constitution when they become agents. All law enforcement officers do. And they are not allowed to do their jobs. So in large part, this grassroots plan that was put together, Dale Hulse from the Clear Lake Tea Party and I did the majority of writing on it. I did a lot of the editing because I'm the English teacher in the group. There are some other, probably more detailed English teachers in this group, some friends of mine, and they know who they are, that could probably find some mistakes in here. For heaven's sakes, don't point them out to me. Because if you tell me that there's a comma missing in this report after the last edit took me 30 hours I might just come unhinged. Okay, so I'm just saying, you might slip me a note, but don't make that the point of what you tell me about the report, please. As this report was released last week in Austin, we had an ABC News report that came out where ICE actually admitted that there are 6,000 people in the United States on student visas, and they have no idea where they are. Did you hear what I said? There are over 6,000 people that are here in the United States on student visas, and they have no idea where they are. They are not on the campuses where their visas say they're supposed to be. So, that's just the latest problem with our federal government having the open borders. Did you all also see James O'Keefe from Project Veritas? Did you see his latest video that we sent out that shows that the Canadian border is open? Did you all see that this week? Anybody in here, raise your hands if you looked at it. You saw that James and a friend dressed all in black got in a boat, went up, through the Great Lakes, and were able to get close to a water facility, and nobody said a word to them about it. They were able to walk around in a museum dressed like that with a suspicious bag, and nobody said a word to them. So I think that James, some people make fun of his simplistic approach. But I have to tell you, if James O'Keefe can walk across that border and he can do those sorts of things, so can very dangerous people. And I appreciate James because he is one of those guys that gets death threats because he's been so eager to expose our federal government for its betrayal of us. Okay, now, first thing we're going to do here is we're going to review a couple of things. I want to review with y'all for just a few minutes the basis of this. The Rio Grande Valley sector, which is the sector of the Texas border with Mexico that has the highest illegal activity and illegal crossings, is the focus of all of the DPS surge, the National Guard troops personnel that are already there that just arrived this past week over the last couple of weeks, and U.S. Border Patrol. I want to remind you that when you compare the number of U.S. Border Patrol agents per border mile in Texas with other border states, we have half. Texas has 7 U.S. Border Patrol agents per border mile, compared to New Mexico, Arizona, and California. They have 14 U.S. Border Patrol agents per border mile. So you can see right there that the federal government is really not interested in Texas, and particularly in the Rio Grande Valley sector, because this is the busiest sector. And Matt Schaefer, Representative Schaefer, sent me a DPS report that had been released, and I reviewed that, and I have to tell you, and we will put it on our website so you can see it. They're very clear about the threats coming over the border. So when you look at this, you will see that this sector here is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what is open on the border. And you see how far up it goes. It's not just limited to those counties that are right there on the border. This is one of the sectors that we visited when we were on the border. Then you have the Laredo sector next door. We went to the Laredo sector, and I can tell you it is wide open, and it is one scary place. Those stash houses that are located on the cliffs overlooking the Rio Grande Valley sector are some of the worst neighborhoods. I mean, if you could just imagine what a third world country looks like, that's what they look like. And as you travel down those streets, you see the tennis shoes that are thrown over the electric lines. Those are drug houses. And you street after street after street, they've been marked. by the cartels. The cartels are also using those as stash houses to house people that they are trafficking and to store drugs. And there's a lot of violence down there that you will never hear of. Why is that? Because the local officials have conspired with local media not to tell you about it. The only people who are actually reporting, because they get the reports, the police reports, they watch the police reports, is Breitbart, Texas, and they report on it every single day. Ildefonso Ortiz does a lot of reporting on that. Incidentally, look at the Laredo sector. It goes all the way up to Dallas. Dallas-Fort Worth, according to your own Department of Public Safety, is a major command and control center for 6 of the 8 most dangerous cartels working in the United States. This is to remind you that there are giant gaps in Border Patrol, and these gaps mean this for the border agents. They have no ability to call for backup. There are areas that are left without agents assigned to patrol. When the agents do respond to alerts, they are regularly alone in the field with little to no access to cell or radio communication, and they have consistently poor, defective, insufficient equipment. Your federal government that wastes billions of dollars on unnecessary, stupid, unconstitutional things cannot seem to equip the United States Border Patrol to fulfill a constitutional obligation that they have to protect the life, liberty, and property of the people of the United States. Now, we have made an inquiry with the Border Patrol Union to see if the union could accept donations. And if they will accept donations, the Tea Parties across Texas are going to start an opportunity for people to donate to buy night vision equipment and things that these men and women need to protect their lives and to protect yours. What will 1,000 National Guard personnel do? Remember, I said personnel, I didn't say troops, because there's a big difference between somebody that's called a troop and somebody that's personnel. You have to understand there are quite a number of administrative personnel embedded in this, so we don't have 1,000, big old guys all suited up, standing there on the border, preventing people from entering illegally. That's not what they do. They have just been deployed. It's on a volunteer basis, and about 2,200 said that they would serve, and about 1,000 will serve. Governor Perry's statement. The state's deployment of troops and funding of Operation Strong Safety is intended simply as a stopgap measure until the federal government steps in. Federal government's not going to step in. It is not clear, again, that all will be troops. Governor Perry refused to provide specifics on numbers, the time frame, and tactics, saying that they did not want criminals to have that information. But what's very interesting is the very week that he said this, I was sitting in a House hearing of the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee in the Capitol, and this is what we heard. Okay, now why did I stop working here? Something's wrong. It was working and now it's not. Just advance it for me then, manually, if you would. Somebody help. These are fresh batteries in here. And it should advance right there. Now, okay. So the House Committee on Homeland Security and Public Safety on August the 5th, Adjutant General John Nichols, when he was asked by Representative Pickett, who is the committee chair, What is your charge? What is it that you all are doing? General Nichols said, what we've been asked to do specifically is to come support DPS in their Operation Strong Safety. He stated that the state hasn't asked the National Guard to detain suspected undocumented immigrants. This is a direct quote. My command to my folks is avoid confrontation. Our rules of engagement are really rules of non-engagement. Now, if you've read the report, our border plan online, you will see that I took the transcript of the discussion, the dialogue on Fox News between Governor Perry and Sean Hannity about, by golly, if the federal government is not going to secure the border, Texas will. Now, I'm just saying, words mean things. Words particularly mean things in this situation because lives are at stake. This is not having a policy discussion over whether or not we should fund toll roads, okay? This is a different kind of conversation. I will remind you about the death of Agent Vega on August the 3rd. 2 days later, we hear Adjutant Generals say our rules of engagement are really rules of non-engagement. If you're sending the National Guard to quote-unquote secure the border, how do they do that if they're not engaged? I'm just saying, somebody explain it to me. If undocumented immigrants try to turn themselves into the National Guard troops, he added, the soldiers are instructed to ask them to sit down and wait for Border Patrol or DPS agents to arrive. The American people need to be told the truth. If you are a governor and you're in that kind of position and you want to run for President of the United States, it is a reasonable expectation that there would not be a lot of daylight between what you state and what is actually going on. Are y'all with me on that? Okay. Remember again, Agent Vega, murdered in front of his parents, in front of his wife and his children by 2 illegal aliens who had been deported multiple times. And by the time you add up the fines that they had paid, it was under $100. So Sean Moran said, I guess the value of the life of an agent is under $100. That's the kind of morale we have going on. I'm surprised, you know, it is love of country that keeps them from walking off the job. And I'm going to remind you that bullets don't follow jurisdictional lines. Agent Vega could be DPS officer, fill in the blank. And I have some DPS officer friends that are dear friends of mine, and I'm terrified every time they take a turn of deployment down there. There are 29 legal ports of entry in Texas, and about 18 of those are bridges. The bottom line of our plan says this: if you want to come to the United States through Texas, you need to find one of the 29 legal ports of entry and get yourself through it. But if you want to come on a jet ski, a raft, you want to walk across, or you want to swim across, we have a problem with that. And my friends, this problem is never going to be solved until somebody in position of authority gets that point. Because we're just participating in the federal government's catch and release program. The catch and release program that got Agent Vega and so many others murdered. I'm going to remind you about Smith County and the high rate of gang activity. This map comes from the DPS report. You look at Smith County up there, you see how dark blue it is? Has some of the highest gang activity, the highest gang activity in the state. You look at where that is clustered, it mirrors the Houston area. It mirrors some of the border counties and the DFW area. And it's because I-20 runs right through here. Now, what is Grassroots America doing about that problem? Well, we're about to go into our second annual collaboration with Smith County Sheriff's Department to hold a law enforcement training and a public training. Last year we had it on human trafficking. We'll probably include some of that this year, but we're going to talk about the cartels and the transnational gangs that are walking around in this county. Why are we doing that? For your safety. You need to understand, you need to know what to look for. You hunters out there, there are other things in Smith County woods besides deer and feral hogs. If you had the conversation with law enforcement that I do, you get a new understanding about going hunting in Smith County and Gregg County particularly. You need to be aware of these things. You need to know what to look for. So we're going to have a DEA agent that's going to come and talk about the cartels and the drugs and all that, and then we're going to have DPS. Now, law enforcement's going to be able to get T-Code credits for their continuing education credits for the law enforcement part, and then I think it's going to be Friday and Saturday, and then the Saturday part will be for the public, and I hope that you will attend that. We intend to have it out at the TJC West campus. Why does Grassroots America believe it's important to partner with the Sheriff's Department to do this? To show the public that we need to be aware. Because it's the people then who communicate that concern to elected officials, other elected officials, who have everything to do with the funding of law enforcement budgets. Funding law enforcement is different from funding anything else. Now, I don't advocate anybody wasting money, but I'm telling you right now that when you know that the Department of Public Safety has shown you, and that's been supported by reports, eyes on the ground at the border, that they are using military tactics and equipment against law enforcement, you better believe they need to have the right kind of body armor, the right kind of things they need to fight it. Okay, if you want to know what kind of cartels, the La Familia cartel is at work in beautiful East Texas, the Zetas, and the Gulf cartel. The Gulf cartel now is different from the others because the Gulf cartel is now run by just gangbangers. You heard Brandon Darby say that. All of the old patriarchal heads have either been killed or they've died off. So Gulf cartel is being run now by a bunch of young 20-something gangbangers. They don't look at it as a long-term business. They're in it for today. They live for today. And they are very, very dangerous. They are at work here. We need to be aware of that. Winston Churchill's quote is very applicable for today. The era of procrastination, of half measures, of soothing and baffling expedients, of delays is coming to its close. And in its place, we are entering a period of consequences. Do y'all believe that we're entering a period of consequences? I do. I really, really do. So what do we do about it? Well, we had a Gulf Coast Summit on the border crisis down in Webster. Ray Myers attended, as well as I did. We had 75 grassroots leaders. We met with the Texas Ranger and others with direct knowledge of this crisis. We also presented our draft action plan, and the group endorsed it. And why did we do this? The status quo is unacceptable because it's deadly. Our border crisis action plan is called a plan to secure the border with Mexico to protect the health, safety, and economy of the state of Texas. We presented it at the state capitol on September the 4th, and the grassroots action rollout commences next week. And what that looks like is we're begging people. If you have not called your elected officials, we're going to give you a list of people you need to call, and you need to tell them that this is very, very important to you. And hopefully you can help us wake them up. To underscore the seriousness of this, I want to give you something that Marine Corps General John Kelly of the U.S. Southern Command said in a congressional hearing earlier this year. Budget cuts are severely degrading the military's ability to defend the U.S. southern border. His task force was unable to act on nearly 75% of illicit trafficking events. He said, "I simply sit and watch it go by." He warned that neglect has created vulnerabilities that can be exploited by terrorist groups, describing a crime-terror convergence already seen with Lebanese Hezbollah involvement in the region. We already know because there was a report leaked from the U.S. Border Patrol to Brandon Darby with Breitbart, Texas, that more than 75 countries have illegally crossed over our border. And they are from some of the most dangerous countries on the face of this planet. Places that have groups like Al-Shabaab, Hamas. You know them, you hear about them. They are in Mexico. The objectives of our plan are these: to identify the constitutional authority that allows the state of Texas to take unilateral action that is necessary for Texas to act on its own. To identify specific actions needed to stop massive influx of illegal migration into Texas, and these are actions that are made necessary because the federal government has failed its constitutional responsibility to secure the border. It is to inform Texas politicians, the media, and public about the constitutional options and the actions that the state of Texas may pursue to secure the southern Texas border, thereby protecting Texas and the nation from the criminal elements and the security risk. My friends, Texas through the Rio Grande Valley sector, if you only want to look at one, is a gateway to the rest of the United States. You've seen the videos. They can get across that river and disappear into the slum areas, the narrow alleyways of those Texas border towns, and disappear into the population. And then they can find a way to get to a major highway. They're out in the interior of the United States. And nobody stands in the way. We need a declaration of standing in order for the state of Texas to assume its constitutional, its legal standing to repel further invasion and to address the current state of imminent danger. The state of Texas must formally make a declaration of invasion or imminent danger to invoke Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution. You read it, and it says that the states have the right, the legal standing to declare an invasion or a state of imminent danger and to act to secure their own borders when the federal government fails to do so. Now, you know, people can just roll their eyes. I mean, we had some people in our press conference with the media that rolled their eyes and snickered. Well, if we have somebody blow up the Houston Ship Channel, blow up a football game, or something like that, I wonder how long it'll take before they'll start rolling their eyes and start paying attention to what we can do. And let me tell you, the only difference between Texas and the state of California today is rhetoric. Governor Jerry Brown has been so bold as to say, illegal aliens, come right on in. We welcome you. In Texas, we don't say that, but we've got the welcome mat out because we've got social safety net magnets and, you know, we play catch and release. So that's a harsh saying to some people, but if you can prove me different, get up here and let's debate it. Words mean things. What can the Texas State Legislature do? They can make a finding and pass a resolution declaring that the state of Texas has actually been invaded or is in such imminent danger as necessitates immediate action for the state to bypass traditional congressional approvals. Now, am I telling you this would be easy? No. Federal government's going to get its nose out of joint about this. And I'm going to tell you, we are rapidly approaching a time that somebody better decide if it's time for Texas to stand up to the federal government bully and protect our state. Because if you're not ready to do that, please, for heaven's sakes, stop patronizing us by telling us that you're a constitutional conservative. You are no such thing. What can the Attorney General do? The Attorney General can issue advisory opinions or seek declaratory judgments that the state has actually been invaded or is in imminent danger. Now that's language straight out of Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. Thereby ruling the state has power under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 to repel invasion and immediately address all aspects of imminent danger to the people of Texas. Now, did JoAnn just get up one morning and go, you know what, I think I'll just write a plan, I'll just make it up? No, we consulted with constitutional experts and authorities about this, and they agreed with us on this. And just the basic reading of the Constitution will yield this decision right here. It's not anything, it's really not rocket science, as they say. The Texas governor can take an executive order under the powers granted his office by the Texas Constitution to declare the state under invasion or imminent danger, thereby invoking Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. The governor should then notify the Texas congressional delegation of the United States representatives and U.S. senators that Texas will take decisive action to protect the life, liberty, and property of its people. They're not going to wait around for them anymore. What does this mean? By assuming its constitutional authority, the sovereign state of Texas will interpose itself between the federal government and its own citizens for their safety and general welfare protections. The state of Texas will thereby assume the lawful position of enforcing already existing laws. We're not making anything new here, folks. We're talking about Texas assuming its constitutional authority to simply enforce existing laws. And why do we want to do it? To prevent endangerment to our citizens and legal residents. But our new mission must be this: to keep illegal crossings from occurring. Doing anything short of keeping illegal border crossers from setting foot in Texas, doing anything short of that is not going to stop it, the imminent danger that we're in. You all understand that? It is the setting foot here that then launches them into the INS process that has been exploited by the Obama administration, and we will wind up with that actually citation from the law at the end. Here are the lawful action steps. We should immediately man and fund sufficient floating DPS checkpoints on both sides of the border, to interdict all forms of illegal incursions at border checkpoints. We should establish tactical Texas Border Brigade under the Texas Rangers. We should organize and fund the Texas militias. Again, that is not some scary word, it's in the Texas Constitution. Per the United States Code, to augment the Texas Border Brigade and DPS. This is under the authority of the governor. The governor sets the mission and the charge for the Texas military. We should stop all state social service benefits to illegals. And I have to tell you, I keep having this conversation. I keep having to have this debate with people who have served in the legislature for a very long time. They want to say that illegals can't access social services. Alan, they keep telling me that, Alan. And I say to them, well, what about temporary assistance to needy families? There was a bill filed last session, Jane Nelson filed it in the Senate, and it was to close the loopholes in TANF that prevents illegals from accessing that. That that fund is supposed to be a temporary help. If you have illegals who have legal children, they access that welfare benefit through their children, and they can access it until they have no more minor children living at home. So it's not temporary. It's also not temporary because TANF also has a work requirement. Okay, well, if you're not legally here to work, you don't have to fulfill that work requirement. You see what I'm saying? They are accessing it through that. We also have this thing called emergency Medicaid, which we spent $231 million on emergency Medicaid before all of this happened. So I'm asking the state reps, okay, why would we have something called emergency Medicaid if it weren't for people who were here illegally? Because you see, with Medicaid, you either qualify for it or you don't. So why do we need emergency? Well, because people that are not legal residents or citizens access it there. And in-state tuition. I hope next session that we can get that repealed. I am sick of thinking about it. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of thinking about it. And I'm sick of being told I'm heartless. Zinged if you got that one. Lawful action steps. Continue. The comptroller should conduct cost analyses of illegal immigration on the state of Texas. We should outlaw all sanctuary city practices under penalty of arrest and withholding of state funds. I'm telling you, the sound of a checkbook slamming shut can get the attention of bureaucrats faster than anything I know. We don't use that often enough. By the way, I think somebody should slam shut the checkbook to Mexico for the $15 million that we send them military every year, and the upwards of, I think, another 230-something million to help prop up their economy. You know why? He's called Sergeant Tamarisi. They need to send our Marine back. Shame on us that he's been there that long. We should also boycott commerce, products and services of countries allowing and facilitating the violation of the U.S. immigration laws until the border is secured per Texas predetermined specifications. It falls under the purview of the legislature. They should set that. They should set that criteria, and buddy, we ought to follow it. But I'm going to tell you what, big business is already down there pushing. Every time, the day that Texas Public Policy Foundation had Brandon Darby from Breitbart, Texas, and Dr. Mike Vickers from Texas Border Patrol, who, by the way, lives this every single day of his life, and Sean Moreno, Vice President of the U.S. Border Patrol Association, they were on a panel, and they set forth what a mess this is, what a high security risk it is. And somebody had to say, the moderator, I won't get on his case today, but the moderator, an elected official, said, well, we have to remember that Mexico is our primary trading partner. You see, I keep telling you, they don't look at these issues the way we do. See, this is exactly how the lives of law enforcement are cheapened, because somebody's looking at the economics of it. Economics are important, but not as important as the rule of law, because if you don't enforce the rule of law, there's going to come a day when economics won't even matter anymore. The laws of economics won't hold anymore. We should also criminalize intentional employment of illegals. We should enforce this with a clear system of fines, license revocation, and arrest. I said arrest. For both employers and those guilty of identity theft or those who misrepresent legal status. Provide mandatory verification means for employers. Every time we've had a bill like this in Austin, it gets hung up in committee. And I'm going to remind you that Republicans are in charge of the leadership of the House and the Senate. And these bills can't get out of committee. Lord willing, we've changed at least one side of that equation for next year. Identify all health threats and develop a plan of action to contain. At this point, there's no visible means of any sort of planning for that in the state of Texas. Excuse me. I also, the day that I was down there at the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee hearing to testify, we also had the head of HHS, the state HHS in there, and there was no visible sign of any plan because he said this. He said, well, the kiddos coming across the border, we've only spent at this point about $42,000 to give them vaccinations. And besides that, they come from Central American countries that have a higher rate of vaccinations than we do. So that's the kind of spin we also heard. I have to say it was hard to sit in that hearing and behave. We should make human trafficking a first-degree felony, punishable by 20 years to life, and mandatory capital offense for victims under the age of 18 or offenses resulting in the death of the victim. We should suspend all licensing activity between the state of Texas and the federal government or its contractors and subcontractors for facilities or land use related to the border crisis. This is about building more detention facilities. We need to simply tell them no. Invalidate any federal restrictions on Texas officials' access to land and airspace in the conduct of border and immigration enforcement activities. Remember, there's a lot of the border that is under those special provisions. You know, it's a sanctuary for all kinds of, you know, plants and little animals and things like that. So Border Patrol can't use the ATVs to go in there. They have to get on horses and ride. That's insane. Because the illegal immigrants don't care about those rules at all. We need to establish legal procedures for Texas to apprehend, hold, and deport illegals back to their home of origin without federal handling. We need to stop all commerce. We need to stop all commerce through Texas ports and roads for any countries that refuse to cooperate. Now, will this hurt somebody? Yeah. Will it hurt us? Yeah. What are you going to choose? Do we want to continue to have lawlessness? Do we want to continue to have people just pour over our border? That, by the way, the criminal elements go all the way back to what I started with. There are 29 ports of legal entry. I submit to you that ministries and humanitarian organizations should work with those Latin American countries and educate them on how to hold them by the hand, get them by the hand, and get them away from the coyotes and the cartels. Stop paying them thousands of dollars to bring them across illegally. And let's have a humanitarian effort. If you really need refuge in the United States of America, somebody go hold your hand and bring you over a legal port of entry. We should establish standing for Texas laws or legal actions demanding relief from federal executive orders that are not in the best interest of the state. Blanket amnesty orders or other unconstitutional violations of federal law. What I mean is we need to sue them every day if we have to. Form joint select committee to assess impacts of the illegal immigration crisis and the roles of the federal government, Mexico, Central America, and other countries of origin. Identify the motivations and purposes behind those countries' action. I submit to you that the intent can be found in public documents. It's there. We also suspect that some of the folks from the hard left have been in Central America agitating this. Hasn't been proven yet, but I suspect if somebody had the nerve to go down there and go undercover, they would find exactly that. We should challenge, let me make sure I didn't skip. We should challenge Plyler v. Doe that originated in Smith County. The requirement to educate illegal minors in Texas schools and the ban on asking students for their legal status. Given the huge cost and resources and dislocations, Texas should declare its authority to determine if and how to best provide for such education for the minors for limited time that they would be here. We should negotiate compacts with other states as appropriate to address and manage the immigration crisis. And Ray Myers back there from Kaufman County and I have been part of a conference call situation for a couple of months now where we're actually talking to activists and elected officials in other states to do exactly that. So we've made a start on that on behalf of our elected officials. A clear message should be sent to the Mexican officials that the state of Texas has assumed its constitutional authority to stop the invasion and imminent danger, to reduce the danger to its citizens, to the women and children exploited by the cartels and coyotes, and to the interior populations of the United States. Anyone wishing to seek refuge in the U.S. should do so via legal ports of entry into Texas. But anyone seeking to gain entry through tunnels, scaling fences, digging under the fences, via ski boats, rafts, or swimming across the Rio Grande River will be warned and then met with the appropriate force. Novel approach, don't you think? If we don't do this, we're going to continue catch and release. Do you see there is no end to this unless we do this? Now, somebody's going to say, well, you know, JoAnn, there's just no way that you can keep everybody out. Okay, well, let's kind of target maybe 50%. Could we raise the stakes on our side a little bit? Could we please do that? And this is something that Matt Schaefer brought to you, Representative Schaefer. It is a myth that crossing the border without papers is a federal civil matter. It most assuredly is not. The fact is, it's a federal crime to cross the border without official authorization, and it's a crime the first time. You can see the section of the law there, and it says, for the first commission of any such offense, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 6 months or both, and for a subsequent commission of any such offense be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. We don't do that. We don't even mess with that. How many times have you heard an elected official say, it's just a civil offense? And the media parrots, it's just a civil offense. Nobody bothers to look to see what the truth is. You know, folks, truth really does matter. It really, really does matter. And I appreciate Representative Schaefer bringing this to our attention. The problem and the solution. The problem is the arrest of an alien who has set foot on Texas soil that triggers a civil process to make their case as to why they entered. That's the problem. You set your foot here, you get in here, then you get to plead your case under the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952 as amended. That's what triggers all this bureaucratic, paper shuffling, rule of law breaking nightmare that we're in the middle of, is this right here. And this is a process that both political parties have supported. I know people in the room that don't like to hear that. I'm sorry. Have you seen anybody get up anywhere and say this? No. But this is the problem. And it's been exploited by the Obama administration, and he's about to do it some more after the November election, as if people are too stupid to figure out that. It is time to dramatically reduce this opportunity to exploit the INO by Texas invoking Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution, and assuming all its authority to protect its citizens, and to assume all its authority, all of its remedies under the Texas Constitution, and to get this right. Thank you. If you all have not read the plan, I'm not going to ask you how many have. You know, I've had elected officials, and they're all going to get a copy delivered to their offices pretty soon. Some of them already have. But I'm sick and tired of having elected officials tell me that if a document's over 1 page, it's too much to read. They just don't want to say that to me anymore in the caucus meetings. They just don't want to, because somebody in the back of the room goes, incoming, duck. You say that to me, because here's the deal. If you're an elected official, particularly at the state level, and if 14 pages of something that your constituents bring to you is too much for you to read, you might want to reconsider your line of work. You just might need to say, you know what, maybe I am not suited for public service. So we got some questions? Yeah. I'm coming. Okay. And by the way, for those of you who have those granular questions about the Texas militia and all that sort of thing, we're probably not going to get that deep into the granular details today, but you know, it's online. The sections of the Texas Constitution that it's under, it can be done. One of the things we advocate in the plan, because I just hit the high spots. We've got supporting documentation in there for everything we've said. What is really important in that report online is that you click on the embedded links. You know what I mean when I say that? When you see like a blue link, the letters are blue, that means click on it, and it's going to take you to the supporting documentation, the source. Sometimes it's a public document, and sometimes it's a source, the media source by which we extracted a quote. And we tried to be very, very diligent about making sure that we did not take any quotes out of context. That's why it took me one weekend, 30 hours one weekend, to go through that and go back through all the links and read all of it for context. So,
what is Greg Abbott's declared approach to securing the border? And in your opinion, is he going to actually do anything about it?
Okay, I will say this. I have the highest hope that General Abbott, that we're going to hear a response from him on our plan. Here's what I did. I happened to know his policy advisor. His policy advisor asked me to review some of their policies before they put them out last October. So I called him last week and I said, you know, I did you guys a favor. I read your policy papers and I commented on them for you. And so I'm sending you one. And I want to hear back from you on it. So he said, well, you know, I'm going to read it first before I give it to the general. And so we'll see. But I will tell you this, he's going to be asked by a lot of folks if he's gonna support it, because here's what we're saying to all the elected officials. If you don't like something in the plan, if you don't agree with something in the plan, tell us, here comes that annoying little word, why? You know, I never got over being a 2-year-old and going, why? I really want to know why. If you don't think we can do this, tell me why, and then tell me what your plan is. Because the bottom line is, we have to stop participating in catch and release. Do y'all understand that? So however they get there, if it's a legal constitutional way, I'm happy to take that ride with them to explore that avenue. But simply sitting there and just the status quo is really not acceptable. And I tell you what, Heidi Teese, firebrand that she is, she said at our press conference, she said, I will tell you this right now. She said, if we have a terrorist attack and there's loss of life and property in the United States, and it can be traced back to a wide open Texas border, we're not going to be just blaming President Obama. Our state officials are going to have their fair share of blame right there because they sat there here and did nothing. Yes, ma'am.
Please put on the internet what we saw today. We will act.
Okay, good, thank you. Because what we're going to do next week, now as I said, we're going to have an action plan. There's going to be a website, actually Grassroots Texans, not Grassroots America, but Grassroots Texans has a place for you to go on and sign on as a supporter to the plan. That's grassrootstexans.net, I believe. Ken Emanuelson agreed to do that. We've used that site before when we have these open letters to the state officials and to the legislature where we have y'all sign under letters during legislative session and to take action. Well, he's got that already all built, and it takes a good bit of work to get all of that data and get it in a format that you could actually use it. So anyway, that's a way for people to sign on, and then we're going to have an action plan that we will release this week, like who to call and the phone numbers. We want to make it easy because you all know what I say. If you're sitting here and you've been stewing about this and you have not yet picked up a phone to let your elected officials know how you feel about it, you've not taken the first step toward good citizenship and helping solve the problem. Because I've told you before, elected officials, silence equals approval to them. Okay, let me say that again. Silence equals approval to them. If you're not fussing about it, they think you're okay with it. And I hate to say it, sorry Judd, but even if you know that your state representative agrees with you, or if you have the luxury of having a state senator that agreed with you on it, you would need to call them anyway. And we're going to ask you to call Dan Patrick next week, okay? Because Dan Patrick needs to know how serious you are about it. Dan's been talking about security, but he needs to hear from you, okay?
We need you for Attorney General. Wow.
I'm going to answer that like I answered every time somebody says such a thing. Y'all really do want me shocked, don't you?
Is it true that there are so many armed people on the Texas border that there is a real possibility of shooting each other?
No. No.
The drug cartels working in Texas, are their ranks filled with only Mexican nationals? Assuming no to question 1, how are they recruiting here? Are they recruiting across races, Hispanic, white, black, etc.?
Yes, they prey on children in foster homes for both sex trafficking, slave labor, gang affiliations. And if you come up on a young person that has a tear tattoo, that means they're already a violent criminal and they've taken somebody's life. Okay? Now, Zach Taylor, head of former Border Patrol Agent Association. There's a video that we sent out of him. And he sent out a press release, I think it was back in early August. And the former Border Patrol agents, still stay in touch with Border Patrol. And based on even their intel that they had before they retired, Central America has been recruiting children to put into the transnational gangs and to send them to the United States for quite some time. This is business for them. And again, if there wasn't a market here for what they're selling, they wouldn't be successful at it. So we need to pray for our country because it's depraved. Let me say this about trafficking a minute. I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with a couple of the folks that head up one of the ministries here that try to work to save the girls, young girls, from trafficking. Because they were having a problem getting the point across to some folks. Let me just tell you what they told me. This is shocking. But the girls that they have that have been trafficked, without exception, they've said to them, when we were brought to Tyler, we were told, we'll make good money off of you here. Because when it gets too hot for us in Houston, or it gets too hot for us in Dallas-Fort Worth, we can come to Tyler and we can make a lot of money because nobody cares. I'm going to tell you something. We're going to start caring in this community about that. And I've already had a conversation with Mayor Hines about it. We're going to have a meeting with Chief Swindle. We've already had a meeting with Sheriff Smith and his detectives, and I am telling you the truth. If there are people, high and mighty people, that have been aiding and abetting and participating in this, I want them to know that Grassroots America is going to be lighting a fire under law enforcement to come take your playthings away from you.